What's up, guys? Dustin with Two Brothers Comics, and today we have got a very, very special live stream we're doing. This is our very first live stream on our channel, and we are kicking that off big today. We are bringing on someone really, really cool. So I'm making sure you guys know right before we start, don't leave the channel and stay tuned. All right, guys, so we have a special guest today. Like I said, we're going to bring him on in just a second. He is doing some great work with Mad Cave Studios. He's got several books that are coming out. He's got a book out right now that we're going to talk about today that I have absolutely fallen in love with. And I wanted to make sure that we could share that with you guys, because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't know about this book who are going to love it too. So I'm going to bring my guest on now, Mad Cave Studios writer and creator of the big hit Over the Ropes, Mr. Jay Sandlin.
Hey, how's it going?
What's going on, Jay?
What's going on? It's New Comic Book Day. We're celebrating all things graphic storytelling and things of that nature. It's a good day. It's a day I've been any day that you have a comic book coming out, it has to be a great day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't wait to go pick it up today. You picking up anything today in particular?
I will be picking up some things in particular today. I always pick up the other Mad Cave titles. There's RV9, Woven Heart. I'm really looking forward to some of their other titles like Knights of the Golden Sun Volume 2, whenever that comes out. The Battle Cat Anthology, Tales of Valyria. We've got another title coming out next month, Savage Bastards, a Western by a friend of mine, David. David writes comics, who is they've been working on that one for a while as well.
Okay.
And outside of Mad Cave, I always pick up the Vault titles that are releasing. I'm really looking forward to Finger Guns next month from Justin Richards.
Okay.
I am all then I've got, I usually buy the paper hardback copies of the indie titles.
Right.
And I read my big two on the apps. So
Okay.
I think everybody should buy more indie comics. That's if you get nothing else out of me today, it's buy indie comics.
Yeah, man, couldn't agree more. And me and Nick also, I mean, we feel the same way. We did a whole YouTube video on, our thoughts on the indies being better than the big two right now. I mean, we are absolutely 100% in on the indie comics. We
No
love
question.
those, and that
And
eats up most of
anybody
our
that
playlist.
reads comics who is not reading indie comics and then gets turned on to indie comics never regrets it.
Absolutely.
That's the what I've observed. So yeah, if you have not gotten into indie comics yet, it's now's a great time, because 2019 was a big explosion with companies like Mad Cave, Vault, some of the others, Aftershock, and Image and Dark Horse are always releasing great things. But
Boom Studios.
Boom is great. We were talking about that with the Power Rangers earlier. You've got some awesome artwork there behind you. I like your belt, by the way. It's
Thanks, man.
very over the ropes-ish. You got the big gold belt, first made for, I guess, Ric Flair. Did you know you had to pay a $30,000 deposit to carry that belt?
Wow.
When they first came out with it.
I did not know that.
Well, that was, you remember when Ric Flair jumped to the WWF in the early 90s?
Right.
He told the WCW runner at the time, Jim Herd, the pizza man, he said, you want the belt back, you need to pay me the $30,000 plus interest.
No doubt.
I think he told him to go to hell. So Flair showed up on WWF carrying the belt because he had paid for it. And of course, that caused years of, legal issues. And
Oh, yeah.
WCW then struck back by throwing the women's title,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
having in the trash
Medusa
can.
on
Oh yeah, I love Medusa. Medusa is
yeah.
fantastic. We were both talking before the show that we're both 90s wrestling fans.
Oh yeah.
I was going to say that is who I really wrote Over the Ropes for. When Mad Cave Studios and I first got together, this was back in when we first talked about what would become Over the Ropes. It was in September of 2018. And they asked for an underdog pro wrestling story. And I took it from there.
Okay.
the first decision I had to make was, when is it going to take place? Is this going to be a present day story? Do I go? At one point, I thought maybe I go all the way back to the 70s and 70s wrestling, because
Right.
they had wrestling in the 70s was divided up into these territorial
Hmm.
systems. You had the National Wrestling Alliance, and I kind of saw like the promoters as these crime bosses.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought
Absolutely.
I could do something with that. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, the 70s, I don't think a lot of people reading comics will relate to that time as much.
Hmm.
But people, when they think of wrestling, often think of the 90s.
Absolutely. The hierarchy of the sport at that. I mean, it's never been hotter.
It was never hotter. So I said it in 1992. And I chose 92 so, I'd have some room to grow,
Right.
thinking ahead, into the boom period. But I also thought 92 was important because it was when the territory system was ending. It
Right.
was on its last legs.
But it was
You
still.
you had to have a cable TV deal of some kind if you really wanted to stay afloat. And in 92, you had, the WWF, obviously, with the biggest company. You had WCW with their Turner deals on
Hmm.
TBS and TNT. And AWA, prior to that, the All American Wrestling, they had a deal on ESPN, which they, probably faltered out the first.
Right.
So, so that was why I decided to set it in the early 90s with a territory, the SFW, Southern Fried Wrestling. I'm from Alabama. I live in Alabama, so I set it in the South for that reason.
Right.
And I decided to have this territory that was going to be on the cusp of trying to land a TV deal. And that's where you drop into the story. In issue 1, you got it behind you there. Issue 1. I got one here as well. And yeah, there we go. Issue 1, you kind of meet the players. It's not hard to see who the good guys and bad guys are.
Right.
And I wanted, because that was in the 90s, wrestling was full of characters that were, you had your bad guys who you called your heels, and your
Hmm.
good guys that you called your baby faces. And I wanted to be clear in the first issue who was who, so
Right.
you could build off that and take the programs and the stories from there. So in issue 1, it's been out for a month now. I'm not really as worried about spoilers, but we had our main character, Phoenix, the jobber, take the opportunity to win the world title on his own terms by becoming his own character and doing his own thing. Yep, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, excuse. There's the one I'm looking for. So yeah, you talk about a jobber.
A
So
jobber, someone in wrestling whose job it is just to lose. You got to
right.
make the other guy look better. Famous jobbers in history, you've got the Brooklyn Brawler.
Hmm.
Guys like, well, more recently, I don't know if they do it as often, but guy like Dolph Ziggler in WWE, one of the
And
more
that,
talented guys,
I was gonna
keeps
say, and
losing.
that just burns me up because that dude is he deserves so much more than
He's
he
so
has gotten.
talented. Yeah, he's so talented, and so is Phoenix in the story. I
Right.
thought about Dolph a little bit, Nick Namath, who is a really funny guy too. He does
Oh
stand
yeah.
up. This book would kind of be like Dolph Ziggler's wet dream if he just decided one night that he didn't care anymore and he was going to come out as a different character and win the world title,
Go into business for himself.
go into business for
Decide,
himself.
I'm
Yeah.
doing this. Yeah.
And I'm doing this, yes. So, because when I watched wrestling in the 90s, the best storylines to me, and you tell me if you agree or not, were the ones that blended the reality with the fiction. Because you know on some level that with wrestling, what you're watching is predetermined.
Right.
But if the wrestling that you're watching can make you question, can make you doubt and say, "Oh, was that real?" What
Right.
did that actually happen? That happened to me a few times as a kid watching it. I remember Hulk Hogan in the NWO when Hulk turned into a bad guy
Right. The
and
third man.
the third man, and you believed a lot of that stuff. Like
Yeah.
as a 12-year-old, I remember one night Hulk came out and Buff Bagwell was in a wheelchair and he pushed him over.
Yeah.
and I wrote a letter to WCW and said, address this to Hulk Hogan. I think I typed it up on like my old Packard Bell computer, and I wrote it and just said, you have turned against everything you stood for and
Mhm.
Hulkamania, and you can never be redeemed. And I was just,
Yeah.
I was such a mark. I was buying up everything.
I had something kind of like that. You remember Brian Pillman and
Of
Stone
course.
Cold?
Yeah, the gun in the house.
Yeah, that scared me to death. I was freaked out, man. I thought Brian Pillman was about to kill Stone Cold in his own house.
It
I
was
just couldn't
wild, wasn't it? That was wild. They didn't actually fire the gun.
Right.
They showed the gun,
Yeah.
and then they cut away. And yeah, Brian Pillman is one that, when it comes to the ring work that he did, I looked at him and guys like Juice and Thunder Liger, Rey Mysterio,
Yeah.
Billy Kidman, Juventud Guerrera in the 90s, guys
Yeah.
who were definitely the top of the card in terms of ring ability. Chris Jericho, Dean Malenko, they could out wrestle.
Eddie.
Yeah. Oh, and Eddie, 100% Eddie Guerrero. They could out wrestle anybody that was in the main event,
Mm-hmm.
but because of their size, because of their perceived name value, they didn't get the main event. They called them, they wrote these guys off and called them vanilla for being boring
Right.
and midgets, saying they're not any taller than the refs. Why should they be? Why should these
Right.
vanilla midgets be main eventing?
So they spent
Um,
the whole beginning of their career as just curtain jerkers, and then down the road, it's like, okay, all these guys are Hall of Famers and stuff now.
I'm
And
glad
so
you used the term curtain jerkers. I worked that into the book in the
I saw.
first issue. Yeah, Billy Radisson, our villain, calls him a curtain jerk off,
Yeah.
based on the curtain jerker, a term in wrestling for someone who can't get any higher on the card. You're just
Right.
pulling the curtain open for the other guys. Yeah, Billy is the pampered and privileged promoter's son, who is kind of like the 1% of pro wrestling. He inherited his position because
Mhm.
he's the promoter's son, Mr. Ramblin' Ricky Radisson.
Right.
Um, I thought about a lot of, there's a lot of second generation stars in wrestling. Some of them are better than others. Some of them you get people like, The Rock and Randy Orton, Natalia,
Mhm.
people who are tearing it up. And some of them don't quite live up.
Yeah.
Billy Radisson in skills certainly does live up, but his mouth gets him in trouble.
Right.
So we're gonna see how he and Phoenix interact in the next over the next 5 issues. Over the Ropes is going for 5 issues, and issue 2 is out today. It's still in the South. I'm keeping this in the South, where it's taking place in
Memphis.
Memphis this issue, walking in Memphis. And we saw at the end of issue number 1 that he's got an opponent set who is a big kind of honky tonk man meets Yokozuna type guy.
And that was something I was going to bring up, man. And
All
I've
right,
got a few things that I want to talk to you about this
go
issue.
for it.
This was one too. Is this has obviously got like a honky tonk man feel to it for sure to me. So
You'll get to know this guy more in issue 2. His name is Jesse Presley,
okay.
named after the twin brother of Elvis Presley. And he is a world class sumo wrestler who also happens to hold a record as the largest Elvis impersonator in the world.
Wow, right on.
And he's a bounty hunter. I got the idea from the rumors of the first WrestleMania that allegedly the Iron Sheik or someone was offered a 6-figure payday to break Hulk Hogan's leg
I
and
remember hearing about
ruin the
that.
event. And essentially, if I don't know if that's true or not, but a bounty was put on Hogan, say, we pay you this much to take him out of commission. So that's what Jesse's job is in issue 2, the bounty hunter. He is given a task at the end of issue 1 to really put the hurt on Phoenix. So
Right.
they're going to work a match, but he's really trying to hurt him. So it's another case of trying to blend the
Might turn into a shoot.
realism. A shoot fight. Yes, that's a term in wrestling for when the fight gets real. There are some pretty famous shoots in wrestling, and it's not going to be the last one we have in Over the Ropes as well.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So, first thing I got to ask you, Jay Sandlin, and our main character's name, Jay Sandlin. Is that?
You're the first person to get that. Congratulations. Yes, I 100% did that.
Would
I'll
you?
tell you that is well, the way that happened was when I was in college. One of my first jobs was a telemarketer, and I would talk on the phone with a headset, like this one, and I would say, "Hey, this is Jay Sandlin. This is Jay Sandlin. This is Jay Sandlin." And lots of old people were on these call lists, and they would say, "Jason Lynn," and I wouldn't correct them. I would just go on.
Right.
Well, then a couple years later, I started helping out at a local indie wrestling promotion in my town in Florence, Alabama. And I started using the name Jason Lynn, or I was going to use the name Jason Lynn for I was going to do some ring announcing, and I ended up selling, gimmicks and getting to cut some promos while selling gimmicks.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
that was going to be my wrestling name. And that I did a few training classes. I did one like open clinic for wrestling.
Mhm.
And my fiance, who later became my wife, kind of put a stop to that. So I I always kept the name in mind, and this was a chance to reuse it. So
Awesome.
yeah,
That's
you got
awesome.
that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a whole lot of kids growing up in the '90s, boys especially, that grew up loving wrestling that did not have that dream of wanting to be a wrestler. You know, I'm about 5'6", maybe 5'7", with a good pair of boots on, and so it was definitely too much of a stretch for me. But I know I that's really cool though that you actually went for it too. I mean, and had some interaction with it.
Rey Mysterio would still look up to you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's see. Trying to find the. All right. Next thing I got to ask you here. Ramblin' Rick Radisson. He looks really familiar to me. Is that a resemblance to Rick Rude?
Absolutely. I think there is a resemblance to basically you can find any wrestler that
And,
resembles somebody in the comic.
and I really love that.
I love Rick Rude. I think Rick, and now now right now in NXT and I guess on SmackDown, Robert Roode is
Mhm.
rocking the same gimmick.
Right,
Um, with my character, the main villain, I guess you'd say, Ramblin' Ricky Radisson. He was a territory wrestler. Now he's a promoter. He
right.
is, and he definitely does have some resemblance to Rick Rude. Also, some of the with the dark hair, the mustache, and the muscular body, that's really just an old school wrestling look.
Yeah.
Guys like Lou Thez, there's lots of others. They rocked those mustaches,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I wanted to get that back. And yeah, there is definitely a Rick Rude resemblance. Because Rude, I thought was a great bad guy.
Absolutely.
Never got he as great as he did. I think his injuries really prevented him from going as far as he should have, unfortunately.
Right.
And I always wanted him to be a top bad guy in a wrestling promotion. So yeah, my top bad guy in the book. Uh, there probably is a bit of homage there. Yes.
Right on. Right on. Now the next thing I picked up, which I thought was really, really cool too. Let me see. So we're in the diner, and Jay is having a blind date with Courtney, who was set up by his mother. And we see the guy he was in the ring with in the last page and panel, which they're buddies, and he's bringing food in the diner,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not breaking kayfabe even at work. He's still got the mask on.
Yep, that's Blue Bomba. And he is, as you said, he wrestles Phoenix in the first um, opening. And he's also Phoenix's best friend and training partner. They go way back. They met in Mexico, and you'll learn more about that. And you're right. He doesn't take off his mask at all in the issue. Next issue out today, issue 2, you'll find out he even sleeps in his mask.
Wow.
And he
and
showers
I
in his
know that,
mask.
and I know that the luchadors, that's their gimmick, that and it's not just a gimmick to them. That's heritage, and that's their culture in
Absolutely.
the luchador culture to not
Especially
take
in
it
the
off.
early 90s, even more so than it was now. I kind of based some of that never taking the mask off the famous wrestler El Santo. El Santo, with a blue mask, he did shower in his mask at the arenas. He traveled in his mask, and he
Hmm.
had to go. He had a special arrangement to go um, off somewhere with airport security to take it off, and he was buried with it too. So yeah,
Wow.
that I did take that from existing luchador tradition with Blue Bamba. He embodies because a lot of my favorite wrestlers growing up in the '90s were masked wrestlers.
Right.
I loved Mysterio. I hated it when they took his mask off.
Yeah, I did too.
Um, Ultimo Dragon,
Yes,
Psychosis, Juice and Thunder Liger. The masked guys were real life superheroes.
absolutely.
So I
Ultimo
definitely
Dragon was.
wanted a character like that for sure. And
Yeah, and I kind of saw a little bit of the like Ultimo Dragon, Rey Mysterio kind of
yes,
look to this guy, and I loved Ultimo Dragon. When they would throw him into the turnbuckle and he does the headstand and feet straight up in the air, that was just the coolest thing to me. And come out with 65 belts hanging off of him. I mean, he
yeah,
was.
he was the J Cup. He was like the founding J Cup champion with like over a dozen titles to his name.
Yep.
One of the probably it's a big debate between him and Juice and Thunder Liger as the best, lightweight cruiserweight wrestler, in the world at that time. And in my opinion, Dragon uh, really was one of the wrestlers who made Chris Jericho.
Oh yeah.
Because Jericho and Dragon worked together in Japan, and they put on a match. And in Jericho's book, which I've read several times, he wrote that for many years he would just send that one tape of his match with Dragon to promoters like ECW and
Mhm.
WCW. So yeah, I think Dragon's importance in the sport should not be underestimated. And
Absolutely.
Blue Bamba is my masked wrestler. I actually came up with him when I was like 7, and I was pretending to do missile drop kicks off the diving board.
That's
I
awesome.
called him the Blue Missile at the time, and then when it came time to write the comic, and we love alliteration in comics, I thought, well, how about Blue Bamba? So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's where it came from. Yeah.
Right on. So at this point, we know, Jason has, or excuse me, I'm going to get you guys confused now. We know Jason has been given the opportunity to wrestle for the title because Billy has, like you said earlier, gotten himself into some trouble. So he's been pulled from the tour.
He gets his ass
Uh,
kicked.
do
Yeah.
I?
Yeah, he goes to the bar, mouths off, and gets his ass kicked.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And a bunch of, and it was it Marines or?
That's the story that was told.
Okay.
We
Oh,
we
okay.
we
So
see
maybe.
in the actual panels that it's some guys in the bar or the diner or
Right,
wherever he
right.
is.
And when he
Yeah.
tells the story, just to try to save face.
Maybe they were Marines. We don't really know. And that's the thing about wrestling is that there are these backstage stories that go around and get
Right,
retold until sometimes you don't really know what the truth is.
right. So his dad in the show, Rick, has given Jason Billy's gear and says, "Here, we're putting the title on you, but you're going to be Billy until he can get back." So, you can see Jason struggle with this where, I'm getting my shot. I'm being put at the top of the mountain, but it's not me. It's
Mhm.
Billy, so he's just being given, the spot as a fill-in. So, that's kind
Right.
of like a really a sour edge to a very sweet moment for him. And the next page, I really, really loved what you did there with the foreshadowing where Courtney's waiting for him and she brings the mixtape and she says, you're dressed better today. And he said, yeah, I was just trying to be something I'm not. And she says, don't, and hands him a tape
Yeah.
labeled Phoenix. And I love that because before I even flipped the page, I was like, I know this guy is going to drop kayfabe. He is going to straight up go into business for himself right here. And as soon as you flip the page, you see tape going into to the player, and you see the Phoenix being born there, and he goes into business for himself. And Rick, being a businessman, this is his promotion, so he's got to stay in line with what he's put out there. So, he ends up, dropping the belt, doing the job, and Phoenix wins. And he asked him, "I hope it's worth it." And he said it absolutely was. So,
yes, at that moment it was
right. So, was there anything that happened at any point during, wrestling in the 90s that led you to write all of this way, or?
Not any one moment. It was more about what would a jobber's wet dream be
Right.
of what they could do. And because Mad Cave asked for an underdog story. And I
Right.
thought about those underdogs, in current and past wrestling, and what would it be like if they had the chance one night to just come in and steal the title? I'm sure you can probably find cases, but they would be anomalies. It's just
Right.
something that doesn't really happen. This is so planned. The guys who wrestle are total professionals. I don't think they would go off book like this.
Right.
You do have, the infamous Montreal screw job where things went off the rails a bit, but they were still very much what the promoter wanted.
Right.
So maybe people can help me think of something kind of like that that's happened before. I think there are cases where people have accidentally won titles. I don't know of anyone going into business for themselves to this extent. So if you got an example of that, let me know on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at _WHN. Cheap plug right there.
Always get the cheap plug in, man.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you said that about Courtney. She's going to be important later. But when I talked to the editors about her character, because they asked about her, I felt like less is more.
Right.
And that's why I just had her come give him the tape and really just say one word, stop trying to be something you're not. It wasn't necessary to launch into a big monologue about, who you are and being yourself. I also hope people understand what mixtapes are. I'm not sure everybody would know about that now.
Yeah, I think the demographic that's going to be on this book are probably old enough to remember. I know I made them.
It's so quaint, such a funny thing. You used to sit and put together mixtapes. How quaint.
Yeah, and I work with some younger guys, and they were talking about a mixtape dropping soon, and I'm like, hold on, let's talk about this, because when I was growing up, a mixtape was something completely different. So apparently now it's like a record put out like before you actually get a record deal or something. So I mean, they completely changed the name of it, but yeah, I think most of the demographic reading this book is definitely going to remember what a mixtape is, and
it takes time to make a tape.
Right,
She put some time and effort into for Jason. When Jason, he kind of blew her off on their date. I mean, he was upset. He had other things going on, but from her perspective, he kind of blew her off. Like, she would be well within her rights just to say, "Forget you, jerk. I got things going for me. I don't need to waste my time with you." But for some reason, she, clung to her idiot, as so many great women in fiction seem to do.
Yep. Yeah, and like I said, absolutely right. There was no need for a big monologue there. I mean, the one word stop and just the Phoenix being on the tape, that was, that said more than words would have. I mean, it was awesome. So
thank you. I'm glad you got that.
That wraps up, issue 1. He gets the title, and as you spoke about earlier, we end with he's looking like he's going to be set up with a bounty on his head when he gets to Memphis. So definitely excited to see.
You'll see in the bottom corner there, the title is One Night Feud, which in wrestling, that means you're going to work with someone and have a program with them, but it's not a long-term thing. It's going to go this one night,
right?
Which is kind of what Jesse Presley is going to be for him. The real villains are still lurking, and you haven't met them all yet.
Okay.
But you will issue 2, page 1, in fact.
So you heard it, guys. If you've already read issue 1, it sounds like it's going to pick up hot in issue 2. It's out today. Hit the shops, Go find it. Make sure you guys go pick it up at your local comic shop. Support those guys. Yeah, I can't wait to go and pick it up and read it today. I've been so excited. I bet I've read this book 3 or 4 times since I've got it. So
that's awesome. That's
definitely
great.
enjoyed it. So we've talked about Over the Ropes. Let's talk about some of the other stuff you've got in the works and some of the other things you got going on.
Yeah, there might be some things in the works.
So we got Hellfighter Quinn.
Oh, get ready. Choose your character. It's going to be Mortal Kombat meets Highlander in a blood sport tournament for domination for an object of power, the Azure Sun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was reading on this, when I saw it was coming out, to me, I thought the same thing. It has like a Mortal Kombat, almost like Planet Hulkish kind of feel to it too, with the big arena. You got the planet leader. What looks like watching over and forcing this to happen.
The Queen, yes, her name is Queen Agatha. By the way, she is the leader of the Queen's clan. They are the reigning champions of this tournament called the Tribunal, which is held every few years or so. They've actually been winning it for the last 100 years, so it's kind of they're definitely the New York Yankees of the Tribunal.
Right.
They keep buying the best players because they've got the power. This object, this orb called the Azure Sun, grants superpowers to those who touch it. And if you win it for your clan, your entire clan gains the powers, which changes you, turns you into, you'll find in the preview pages, they're out now on Mad Cave's website, madcavestudios.com. You can read those. Hellfighter Quinn, our main character, he is from Harlem. He is part of the Clanless, and they are about, as low class and hard up as it gets. They are being denied this power. And it's really kind of a commentary on the unequal distribution of wealth and class systems that we unfortunately still have today.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to check it out. And it drops in March, right? March 20th.
This is a March release, so I'm hoping over the next 6 weeks here, you'll get some more reviews and, coming in. We've got some preview copies that are going out to local comic shops. So you might go ask your local comic shop, and when you ask them to put it on your pull list, they should be able to help you with that. And I'm looking forward to hearing what I've gotten some early feedback of people who just say, they really enjoy the fighting. They enjoy kind of the way that the story drops in and just gets started. You only have so many pages to write,
right.
when you start out. And a challenge for Hellfighter Quinn was kind of fitting a whole tournament into 5 issues.
Right.
Because you gotta have a start, you gotta have an end, and then you got to have a tournament in there. And when you play Mortal Kombat, you work your way up the tournament ladder, depending on the game settings, easy, medium, difficult.
Mm-hmm.
You face, how many opponents before you reach, Prince Goro or Shang Tsung. What is it, like half a dozen, 8, 10 at least?
Yeah, I think depending on which ladder you choose, it could be like, 8 or 10. And
so I had to figure out how to best use the pages to get a tournament in there, so it's not just 1 or 2 fights and then a finale.
Right. Plus,
so
I hope
you
character, introducing characters and character development in the middle of it. So yeah, I can definitely.
That was a challenge. So I hope you and everybody enjoys seeing how it turned out and how the pacing went, and maybe getting attached to these characters. Hellfighter Quinn's a funny guy. He's always got a quip and a pop culture reference to go along with his, serious ass kickings he likes to give out.
Right on, right on. Yeah. So everybody make sure you guys are looking out for that. If your local comic shop is not carrying Mad Cave, you need to get on them because you're missing out on some awesome stuff. And this Hellfighter Quinn looks like it's going to be, directly in line with Over the Ropes. It's going to be awesome. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's definitely going to be on my pull list. And then we'll let you talk about the Space Police files too.
Space Police Files. It's available also this week on Amazon, paperback and e-copies, as well as Barnes and Noble. It's not a graphic novel. It's not a comic book. This is prose. It's a short story anthology of 5 stories I wrote set in the interconnected universe and featuring the case files of the Space Police. It is adult, it is uncensored, unredacted, and most importantly, irreverent. There's 5 different stories. You can read a brief description of all of them on the Amazon page. I'd search for my name, Jay Sandlin, or jsandlin.com. You've got exploding cloud aliens trying to take over banks, shape-shifting serial killers attacking nocturnal planets on Halloween. Only thing I'd say, if you're going to check it out, make sure you read them in order, because they stand alone, but they kind of build on each other, and there's callbacks to previous stories.
Okay.
So the order is there for a reason. So yeah, I'm hoping people who read comics just are readers. That's something that doesn't get acknowledged enough. It's almost like comics are somehow lower than literature, and then fiction is somehow lower than nonfiction. There's no hierarchy to reading. Reading is reading. If you love to do it, find what you like to read and read it, and hopefully support your authors, because it's always a labor, and there's very rarely a big windfall of cash for the things you sit down and write. Space Police Files is completely self-published by me and edited by my excellent friend Sinara Tregarth. You can check us out on our podcast at jsandlin.com, What Happens Next, and anywhere podcasts are available. But yeah, I hope Space Police is a chance for maybe something a little different than what you might be getting from the comics.
Right on. So you guys make sure you go check that out. It's available today. And you talked about your podcast. So I've listened to some of it, and so I like the fantasy matchups that you do on there.
We do that from time to time. Cool. Yeah, we've had some great fantasy matchups. We will have some more of those. We also really just like to spotlight other creators as well.
Right.
We've had Vault Comics, Liana Congus and Joe from She Said Destroy. We've had Justin Richards of Finger Guns. I've had my friend Joe Cachadorian on there from his comic Identity Stunt, and several. I've had some Scout Comics, Kevin Joseph from Tart. Just to name a few. We've also tried to bring on veteran writers, guys like J.M. DeMatteis and Paul Jenkins, Rodney Barnes, just to really tell people about their writing process, how they've gotten started, how they do it, and if nothing else, to help encourage and inspire people who might want to create their own stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys can check that out on Jay Sandlin's website.
It's jsandlin.com, or search Jay Sandlin What Happens Next in your favorite podcast app. I definitely recommend Castbox, though, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I use Castbox, so if it's on there, that's awesome.
Awesome. It is.
Yeah, man.
That's where I get most of the listens.
Okay. Right on.
Yeah,
that's where I've got a couple of buddies of mine. They do a podcast that I work with, and theirs is on there. But I've been listening to yours on the website. I never thought to even check Castbox for it, so I'll definitely add it to my list on there. That way, as they come on, they'll automatically go in my queue.
Awesome.
Right on. So, real quick, I want to take a second and just acknowledge the live chat really quick. Let's see who we've got in here. We've got Birch Family Comics here at work. He's a buddy of ours. He's a teacher, so he's sneaking in watching this right now. Comic Man Andy, what's going on, man? We've got, let's see, Taki616. A lot of Southern territories were not able to make it despite a superior product. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just,
if you don't have the exposure, then what's your product going to do?
Right.
Yeah, that was their problem. It was cable TV. You had to have the cable or you weren't going anywhere. If the internet had been around back then, who knows?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean,
Yeah.
look at what's happening right now with AEW. I mean, they just sprung up. I mean, yeah, they
I
had,
love AEW, by the way.
and
Nobody
I don't have
predicted
cable, so
AEW
I haven't been
coming.
able to watch it, but I've keep up with it on Instagram, and I really wished I could because it looks like Cody is doing some really good stuff there.
Absolutely, you should check him out.
Stevie B wrestling. Now you're speaking my language. Stevie B, I know
Check it
you're a
out,
big
Stevie
wrestling
B.
fan. If you
Check it
have not
out.
checked it out, I'm telling you, man, you're missing out. Stevie B hated it when they took off Mysterio's mask.
Yes. In fact, they took off his mask in 1999, but Bischoff wanted to take it off even earlier than that.
Mm-hmm.
And Mysterio managed to fight it then, but he couldn't fight it off the next time. And he did hate that. Yes. It was a bad decision. I
Yeah.
do think, however, it was a good decision to take off Juventud Guerrera's mask. So guess I'm a hypocrite.
Stevie B dropping the job squad.
Al Snow represent.
Yep. All right. Let's see. Make sure. Two Gun Pedro, what's up, man? Discovery Bay, what's going on? Thanks, man. Just pre-ordered the next one from the link provided. Thank you a
Thank
lot,
you.
JB. JB is our resident channel guide here in the YouTube community. He is an awesome contributor to this community. It wouldn't be what it was without JB in it. So that's awesome.
Shout out to Discovery Bay Comics.
Mark the Cuddy Sark. Nice work, JB. That old comic smell. What's up, man? Let's see. Make sure we don't miss anybody else. Stevie B agrees. AEW is killing it.
You got a question up on the top from Stephen Birkland from the very beginning. I wanted to make sure I acknowledged.
Okay.
If he's still there, I don't know. Stevie B asked TMT or Power Rangers.
Oh, okay.
And I got to say that I love both of them, but Power Rangers was my jam growing up. I was all about the Power Rangers, Red Ranger, Green Ranger. When they changed it over to Zeo, I kind of bailed. But I want to get back into the Boom comics and learn some more about this Lord Draken stuff.
You haven't got into it yet?
Only I have been. I'm wanting to read. I've read some summaries of what's happened, and because it seems like it's really good. I watched the trailer for it, but no, I have not dived right in yet. It's definitely been on my TBR list for a while.
It's fantastic, man. Absolutely fantastic. And I kind of got on the train late. Honestly, that series is what actually got me into comic books. I mean, I'd never read a comic book or had any interest in it in my entire life. And then that came about, and I started seeing it actually on JDF's Instagram page, him talking about it and promoting Lord Draken and this Shattered Grid event. So I started reading there. I actually picked it up in it's almost like an absolute version. It's a hardcover that they did. And that's really a great way to read it, would be in trade for that story. But yeah, man, it's definitely an absolutely incredible series. I absolutely love it. Me and Steve Birkland actually did last Friday night a live feed on his channel, just showing off our favorite Power Ranger covers. So you'll have to go check that out.
Yeah, there have been some good ones.
So yeah, it's definitely recommend it. And the Power Rangers TMNT series right now has been, I mean, absolutely, it's been perfect. It's been awesome. So real quick before we go, I just want to let you guys know we are doing a giveaway. Y'all know we got to give stuff away all the time. You know, we have no regard for our own money and collections at this point. We've just give everything away to you guys, and we love it. So, you know, we appreciate everybody supporting us and helping us move along right now. So, you know, we got to give you guys something. So what we are doing is we have in hand, and you guys know we're Two Brothers Comics. So Nick has in hand 2 signed copies of issue number 1 of Over the Ropes. And they are signed by
me. Yeah.
So we've got 2 signed copies, and what we're going to do is we want everybody watching this video for the next 7 days in the comment section, hashtag over the ropes. In 7 days, we're going to pick 2. We'll do two names, and those guys are going to get free signed copies. So make sure you guys are sharing this out and watching it, and put over the ropes down in those comments below. Hashtag over the ropes, because it's an awesome book. And if you haven't read it, maybe you don't have a local comic shop, but you got the internet, you know, you can order a copy. So, I mean, if you're a wrestling fan, if you're just a fan of comic books, this is something you need to read for sure. So
thank you. I appreciate all the nice words. And I hope you guys all enjoy issue 2 out today and where the series is going from here.
absolutely. I can't wait. As soon as my comic shop's open, I'm putting my 4-year-old in the truck and we're going. So,
Great.
GA, appreciate you coming on, man. It's been an absolute pleasure being able to sit and talk wrestling with you, talk comic books, and talk over the ropes, because I've just become such a fan of this book and your writing and Mad Cave as a whole. I know Nick reads a lot of Mad Cave stuff. He's able to get his hands on a little more than I can, but you know, this is absolutely one of my top 3 reads right now that I have in my boxes.
We're just getting started. We're just this. I think issue 2 is let's put it in these terms. Issue 1, we had to introduce everything, set the stage. It was like maybe the debut of Monday Night Raw or
Right.
AEW Dynamite. Issue 2 is like the Royal Rumble. The road to WrestleMania begins.
Okay.
And we're heading full steam from there through issue 5. So be ready.
I'm definitely excited about that. All right, man. I'm going to give you the screen and let you get your last plug in and let everybody know where they can find you.
All right. I'm Jay Sandlin. Find me on my website at jaysandlin.com, where you can sign up for my newsletter, get some news, freebies, and all the good things before anybody else. We've already said Over the Ropes. Issue 2 is available today. Your local comic shop, madcavestudios.com or Comixology. Pre-order Hellfighter Quinn from Mad Cave Studios coming in March. And then I've got my book, Space Police Files, 5 short stories available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Go check all that out and let me know what you think online. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, jsandlin_WHN, or Jay Sandlin Writer on Facebook. Come see me. Let me know what you think. I'd love to talk to you about it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you coming by, and hopefully we can get you back on.
Be the elite.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, guys. So appreciate everybody who has tuned in live, and I hope everybody else is able to watch this later on today. That was a great interview we had with Jay, and we're looking at maybe having him back to talk about issue number 2. So if you guys, again, are not checking this book out, it is a phenomenal story. Absolutely loved it. This is actually the local comic shop day exclusive cover for it. So I picked every cover up that I could. There's actually some variants out there, but thanks again, guys, for hanging out this morning, and hope everybody else has a great day who wasn't able to tune in and can check it out later on today. Again, issue number 2 is out today. Be looking out for that Hellfighter Quinn. That is going to be a great book too. So guys, have a great day. And as always, collect your way. See you guys later.